Jake Morrison stood in the huge chamber and looked at the aliens around him. The room was so big that he could not see the far walls. Thousands of different creatures sat in seats that rose up like a mountain. Some had wings, some had tentacles, some looked like rocks that could move. All of them were staring at him. Jake was not afraid. He had been a soldier for 20 years before becoming a diplomat. He had seen war. He had seen death. These aliens might look scary, but they had never fought humans before. The lead alien spoke through a machine that changed his words into English. "Human ambassador, you will listen to our decision. The Galactic Council has decided that your species is too dangerous. You expand too fast. You take planets that do not belong to you. You interfere with other species when you should leave them alone." Jake said nothing. He just waited. The alien continued. "You have 60 days to leave all the star systems that we say you cannot have. If you do not leave, we will make you leave. All 47 species in this council agree on this." The chamber became quiet. Every alien waited to hear what Jake would say. They expected him to beg. They expected him to make deals. They expected him to promise that humans would be good. Jake turned to his aide, Lisa Carter. She was young but smart. She had served on 3 different starships before coming to work for him. "What is the status of our fleets?" he asked her quietly. "All ships are ready, sir," she whispered back. "Admiral Blake has the entire defense fleet on standby. The colonies have been warned." Jake nodded. He turned back to face the council. "I have heard your ultimatum," he said. His voice was calm and clear. It carried to every corner of the huge room. "Humanity rejects it." The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens made sounds that the translation machines could not handle. Some screeched, some growled, some made clicking sounds. Jake had never heard anything like it. "Furthermore," Jake continued when the noise died down, "humanity withdraws from this council. We no longer recognize your authority over human space or human people." The lead alien stood up. His skin changed color from blue to bright red. "You cannot do this. No species has ever refused a council order. No species has ever left the council." "We just did," Jake said. An alien that looked like a giant bird started speaking very fast. The translation machine said, "This is madness. The humans cannot survive without the council. They need our trade. They need our protection." Jake almost smiled. "We survived for thousands of years before we met you. We built an empire that spans 50 star systems. We did all of this without your help. We do not need you." Another alien, this one covered in scales, made a hissing sound. "The humans are young and stupid. They do not understand how the galaxy works. Without the council, there will be chaos. There will be war." "There is already war," Jake replied. "You just declared it on us. The difference is that we will not be fighting alone." Lisa handed him a data pad. Jake looked at it and smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "I have just received messages from 17 different species. They are all asking to meet with human representatives. It seems that your United Council is not as united as you thought." The aliens began talking to each other. Jake could hear fear in their voices even through the translation machines. They had expected humans to surrender. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they were facing the collapse of everything they had built. The lead alien tried to regain control. "If the humans leave, we will impose trade sanctions. We will block all human ships from council space. We will make sure that no species trades with them." Jake looked around the chamber. "Good luck with that. Humans control the largest industrial base in the galaxy. We produce more manufactured goods than any 3 species combined. We have the strongest military. We have the fastest ships. Most importantly, we have something that you do not." "What is that?" the alien asked. "We have friends," Jake said. "Real friends, not subjects forced to obey, not species bullied into compliance. Friends who choose to stand with us because they want to, not because they have to. As if to prove his point, Lisa handed him another message. Sir, the Centauri Republic has just announced that they are leaving the Council. They want to sign a defense treaty with Earth. Jake read the message out loud so everyone could hear. The chamber became very quiet again. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 300 years, the lead alien said. You cannot destroy that in one day. We are not destroying anything, Jake replied. You are. You chose to threaten us instead of working with us. You chose force instead of friendship. You chose to make enemies instead of allies. Jake began walking toward the exit. Lisa and the rest of the human delegation followed him. Where are you going? The lead alien called out. Home, Jake said without stopping. We have work to do. We have a new alliance to build. One based on choice, not force. One based on mutual respect, not fear. As the humans left the chamber, chaos erupted behind them. Some aliens demanded military action against humanity. Others called for emergency trade negotiations. A few quietly began making plans to leave the Council themselves. The galaxy was about to change forever, and everyone knew it. Captain Roy Williams watched his screen as the messages kept coming in. Every few minutes, another urgent transmission arrived at his ship. The news was always the same. Another species was having problems. Another government was falling apart. Another trade deal had collapsed. Captain, said his communications officer, we are getting a distress call from the mining station at Beta 7. They say their equipment is breaking down and they need human technicians to fix it. Roy sighed. Tell them we will help if we can, but remind them that their government voted to cut all ties with humanity yesterday. Yes, sir, the officer replied. Sir, there is something else. The station commander says that half of his workers have quit. They are demanding passage to human space. This was happening everywhere. The Galactic Council had thought they could punish humanity by cutting trade. Instead, they were punishing themselves. Too many species had become dependent on human technology, human medicine, and human food production. The Altarian Commerce Guild was the first to crack. Within 6 hours of humanity's withdrawal from the Council, their government split into 3 parts. One group wanted to follow the Council's orders and cut all contact with humans. Another group wanted to make a secret deal with Earth. The third group wanted to leave the Council entirely. Roy's ship, the UES Defiance, was patrolling the edge of human space when the first Altarian convoy arrived. 12 cargo ships filled, with rare metals and energy crystals. Their captain begged for permission to enter human territory. Please, the alien captain said over the radio. We have nowhere else to go. The Council has forbidden us from trading with you. But without human, industrial equipment, our colonies will die. Roy made the decision that would be repeated hundreds of times over the next few days. Permission granted. Welcome to human space. On the Council homeworld of Nexus Prime, emergency meetings ran day and night. The Grand Chamber, where Jake Morrison had delivered his ultimatum, was now filled with panicking aliens. Species that had been allies for centuries were now shouting at each other. Admiral Susan Blake read the intelligence reports from her flagship, the UES Independence. Her spy networks were sending back information faster than her staff could process it. The Council was not just falling apart, it was destroying itself. The Corvan Empire has moved 3 battle fleets to the Zenthari border, reported Commander Pete Harrison. But the Zentharis are not backing down. They have called up their reserves and are demanding that the Corvans retreat. Susan nodded. This was exactly what she had predicted. The Corvans see weakness and want to take advantage. The Zentharis know that if they give ground now, they will never get it back. How long before shooting starts? Our analysts think less than a week, Pete replied. Maybe less than a day. The irony was not lost on Susan. The Council had existed to prevent wars between member species. Now that the Council was weak, those same species were preparing to fight each other. Humanity had not started this conflict. They had simply removed themselves from it. More reports came in. The Etherian Collective was withdrawing their ambassadors from Nexus Prime. The silicon-based mechanoids had stopped all shipments to Council worlds. 3 minor species had declared independence from the Council entirely. On Earth, President Helen Brooks met with her cabinet to discuss the situation. The room was tense but not panicked. Unlike the Council, the human government had prepared for this possibility. "How many species have requested meetings with us?" she asked Secretary of State John Martinez. 31 so far, he replied, including 8 that are still officially part of the Council. They are all asking for the same things: trade agreements, defense treaties, and technological assistance. "What about the military situation?" President Brooks asked Defense Secretary Bill Cooper. "Admiral Blake reports that our defensive positions are secure," Cooper replied. "But the really interesting development is that nobody is actually threatening us. The various alien fleets are too busy watching each other to worry about human space." This had been the key insight that led to humanity's bold move. The Council was not a source of strength. It was a source of weakness. It forced natural enemies to work together while preventing natural allies from cooperating fully. Major Kelly Wright was stationed at the observation post near the former neutral zone between the Thorian hegemony and the Veltar Confederation. For 40 years, the Council had kept these 2 species from fighting. Now, with the Council falling apart, old hatreds were coming back to life. "Ma'am," said her sensor operator, "we are detecting weapons fire in the Proxima sector. It looks like a full battle." Kelly looked at the display. Ships from both species were shooting at each other over a mining station that had been disputed for decades. The Council had frozen the dispute, never solving it. Now the freeze was over. "Should we intervene?" asked her aide. "Negative," Kelly replied. "We are observers only. This is not our fight." But even as she said it, Kelly knew that this was exactly why the Council was doomed. They had never solved problems. They had only delayed them. All the anger, all the territorial disputes, all the economic conflicts had been building up for centuries. Now it was all exploding at once. Dr. Lisa Park worked at the Xenological Institute on Mars. Her job was to study alien cultures and predict their behavior. She had been warning about this for years, but nobody at the Council had listened. "The Council system created artificial stability," she explained to a reporter. "They used fear to keep species in line. Fear of economic sanctions, fear of military action, fear of being expelled. But fear only works as long as the thing you fear is stronger than you." "Are you saying that humanity was what they really feared?" the reporter asked. "Exactly," Lisa replied. "We were the Council's military backbone. We were their economic engine. We were their technological innovators. Without us, they have nothing left but empty threats." The reporter looked confused. "But the Council has 47 species. How can one species be that important?" Lisa smiled. "Because not all species are equal. Humans produce more goods, fight better wars, and invent more technology than most other species combined. The Council needed us far more than we needed them. They just never realized it until now." Colonel Dan Foster had seen many battles in his 30 years of military service, but nothing like this. Through his binoculars, he watched 2 alien fleets tear each other apart over a worthless piece of rock, the Thorian hegemony and the Veltar. Confederation had been enemies for over 2,000 years. The Council had forced them to stop fighting, but they had never stopped hating. "Sir," said Major Kelly Wright, his second-in-command, "the Thorian dreadnought just took a direct hit. She is breaking apart." Dan watched as the massive ship split in half. Escape pods scattered like seeds in the wind. Some would be rescued. Many would not. This was the 3rd major battle this week, and it was getting worse. "Why are they fighting over that asteroid?" Kelly asked. "Our sensors show it has no valuable minerals, no strategic value, nothing worth dying for." "They are not fighting over the asteroid," Dan replied. They are fighting because they can. For 60 years, the council made them sit at the same table and pretend to be friends. Now they can finally kill each other again. The Human Defense Force had set up observation posts throughout the former council space. Their orders were simple: watch, record, do not interfere. Let the aliens sort out their own problems. It was harder than it sounded. Dan was a soldier. His instinct was to stop fighting when he saw it. But these species had chosen this path. They had voted to threaten humanity. Now they had to live with the consequences. On the other side of the galaxy, Commander Rick Barnes commanded a small fleet of human medical ships. His mission was different, but just as important. He was authorized to provide humanitarian aid to any species that asked for it, regardless of their political position. "Captain Barnes," came the transmission from the Nautiloid space station. "This is Station Aquatica. We are experiencing critical system failures. Our life support is failing. We need immediate assistance." Rick looked at his medical officer, Dr. Amy Sullivan. "How long do they have?" "Based on their atmospheric readings, maybe 2 days," she replied. "We have the equipment they need, but it will take 12 hours to modify it for their biology." "Do it," Rick ordered, "and send a message to Admiral Blake. Tell her we need more medical supplies. This is not going to be the last emergency." The nautiloids were an aquatic species that required very specific environmental conditions to survive. Their technology was advanced in some ways, but they had always depended on human engineering for their life support systems. When the Council ordered all species to cut ties with humanity, the nautiloids had reluctantly agreed. Now, they were dying because of that decision. "Human vessel," came another transmission. This one from a nautiloid. "Military ship, you are not authorized to be in this system. The Council has forbidden contact with your species." Rick activated his communication system. "This is Commander Barnes of the Human Medical Corps. I am responding to a distress call. Are you going to stop me from saving lives?" There was a long pause. Finally, the alien replied, "Proceed with your mission, but know that this contact will be reported to the Council." "Report away," Rick said. "Ask them how many of your people they are willing to let die for their politics." Meanwhile, on Earth, President Helen Brooks was dealing with a crisis of her own. Not a military crisis or an economic crisis, but a refugee crisis. Every day, more ships arrived at human space stations asking for asylum. Scientists, engineers, doctors, and ordinary civilians who wanted to escape the chaos in Council space. "We have processed over 50,000 asylum requests this week," reported Immigration Director Carol Martinez. "And the numbers are growing. We are running out of space on our frontier colonies." "What about the quality of the applicants?" asked President Brooks. "Exceptional," Carol replied. "We are getting some of the brightest minds in the galaxy. Theoretical physicists from the Etherian Collective, quantum engineers from the Mechanoid Republic, even some military officers from species that are officially still at war with us." This was an unexpected benefit of the Council's collapse. For years, the Council had restricted immigration to human space. They claimed it was to protect alien cultures from human influence. In reality, it was to prevent their best people from leaving. General Alex Turner commanded the Human Defense Force from his headquarters on Luna. His job was to protect human space from any alien attack. So far, no attack had come. The aliens were too busy fighting each other. "Sir," reported his intelligence chief, "we have confirmed reports of active warfare in 17 different systems. The Corvan Empire is fighting the Zentharis in the Vega sector. The insectoid hives are attacking the crystal entities near Altair. The gaseous collective is at war with the machine intelligence in the Outer Rim." Alex studied the tactical display. Red dots marked battle zones throughout the galaxy. None of them were in human space. "Any threats to our territory?" "None, sir. In fact, several species have requested permission to move their fleets through our space to avoid combat zones. They are offering to pay transit fees. Alex almost laughed. The Council had tried to isolate humanity. Instead, they had turned human space into a safe haven for anyone smart enough to avoid the fighting. Dr. Robert Kim worked at the Strategic Studies Institute on Titan. His job was to analyze the long-term consequences of the Council's collapse. The picture he was painting was not pretty. The economic disruption is spreading faster than we anticipated, he explained to a meeting of government officials. The Altarian Commerce Guild has completely collapsed. 3 different factions are claiming to be the legitimate government. Trade routes that have existed for centuries are now war zones. What about food production? Asked Agriculture Secretary Nancy Williams. That is the biggest crisis, Robert replied. 17 different species depend on human agricultural technology to feed their populations. The Council's trade embargo is literally starving them. We are already seeing refugee camps on worlds that were wealthy just months ago. The irony was staggering. The Council had tried to punish humanity by cutting economic ties. Instead, they had punished themselves. Species that had lived comfortably for generations were now facing famine and economic collapse. Commander Sarah Davis led a patrol squadron near the border between human space and the former Council territory. Her ships were not heavily armed, but they were fast and well-equipped with sensors. Their job was to gather intelligence and provide early warning of any threats. "Commander," reported her sensor officer, "we are detecting a large fleet approaching. From the Rigel sector, configuration suggests Corvan Empire vessels." Sarah felt her heart rate increase. The Corvans were one of the most aggressive species in the Council. If they were heading for human space, it could mean war. "How many ships?" she asked. "Estimate 40 vessels, including 6 battleships," came the reply. Sarah ordered her squadron to battle stations and sent an urgent message to Fleet Command. But as the alien ships got closer, her sensors revealed something unexpected. "Commander," said her communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the lead Corvan ship. They are requesting permission to enter human space. They say they are seeking asylum." Sarah could hardly believe it. The Corvans were warriors. They had been the Council's military backbone for over a century. If they were running to humanity for protection, then the situation in Council space was even worse than anyone had imagined. The galactic economy died in less than 30 days. Captain Tony Mitchell watched it happen from the bridge of his cargo ship, the UES Prosperity. His ship carried medical supplies, food, and manufacturing equipment to species that were once enemies of humanity. Now they were begging for help. "Captain," said his cargo master, "we have received 17 more requests for emergency aid just this morning. The crystalline entities are facing total industrial collapse. The hive worlds cannot maintain their food production systems. The gas giant colonies are running out of atmospheric processors." Tony looked at the list of requests. Each one represented millions of lives hanging in the balance. "What is our current cargo capacity?" "We are already carrying 3 times our recommended load," the cargo master replied. "If we take on any more, we risk structural failure." "Do it anyway," Tony decided. "Better to risk our ship than let people die." This conversation was happening on hundreds of human cargo vessels throughout the galaxy. The Council's trade embargo had backfired in the worst possible way. Species that had voted to cut ties with humanity were now completely dependent on human charity to survive. Admiral Susan Blake read the daily intelligence reports from her flagship. The numbers were staggering. 18 species were facing food shortages. 23 species had lost more than half of their industrial capacity. 7 species were dealing with complete governmental collapse. "Admiral," reported Captain Lisa Henderson, her intelligence chief, "we have confirmation that the Aquatic Collective has formally withdrawn from the Council. They are requesting immediate membership in our alliance. That makes 22 species that have left the Council." "In the past month?" Susan replied. "How many are left?" "Officially, 25 species still recognize Council authority," Lisa replied. "But our sources indicate that at least 10 of those are secretly negotiating with us for separate agreements." The council had started with 47 member species. Now they were down to less than half, and the number was dropping every day. Species were faced with a simple choice: stay loyal to the council and face economic ruin, or join humanity and prosper. On the mining world of Kepler Prime, engineer Matt Rodriguez supervised the installation of new equipment for the local silicate population. These rock-based life forms had been allies of humanity for decades, but the council had forbidden them from signing formal agreements. Now they were free to cooperate fully. The new mining lasers are 3 times more efficient than your old equipment, Matt explained to the silicate foreman. You should be able to triple your output within 6 months. The silicate made a grinding sound that his translator rendered as gratitude. We have wasted so many years following council restrictions, the alien said. We could have been working together like this all along. Matt nodded. The council was always afraid that species would like humans too much. They thought that if we worked together freely, their authority would disappear. They were right, the silicate replied. We do like humans better than council bureaucrats. The transformation was happening everywhere. Species that had been forced to limit their cooperation with humanity were now free to pursue their natural interests. Trade increased, technology improved, living standards rose, all because the artificial restrictions were gone. Dr. Jennifer Walsh worked at the Refugee Processing Center on Titan. Every day, thousands of aliens arrived seeking asylum from the chaos in council space. Her job was to evaluate their medical needs and help them integrate into human society. We have a new group arriving from the Centauri sector, reported her assistant, Nurse Patricia Young. 50 families from the Feathered Collective. They say their homeworld is under attack by Corvan raiders. Jennifer sighed. The Feathered Collective had been one of the most peaceful species in the galaxy. They had no military to speak of. Under the council system, they had been protected by collective security agreements. Now, they were defenseless. Set up the standard medical screening, Jennifer ordered, and contact the housing authority. We need to find them temporary homes while they apply for permanent residency. Doctor, Patricia said, that is going to be difficult. We are already housing over 1 million refugees. Our frontier colonies are overwhelmed. Then we will build new colonies, Jennifer replied. President Brooks has authorized the opening of 12 new worlds for refugee settlement. We are not going to turn away people who need our help. This was another unexpected consequence of the council's collapse. Humanity was experiencing the largest immigration wave in its history. The best scientists, engineers, artists, and thinkers from across the galaxy were choosing to join human society rather than endure the chaos in their homelands. On the bridge of the UES Defender, Captain Mike Thompson monitored the space around Vega Station. The station was in neutral territory, but it had become a crucial hub for humanitarian aid. Human ships brought supplies in while refugee ships carried people out. Captain, reported his tactical officer, we have 3 Corvan attacker ships approaching the station. They are demanding that we turn over any Xanthari refugees. Mike looked at his display. The Corvans and Xantharis had been at war for 6 weeks now. Thousands of civilians were caught in the middle. What is our defensive status? All systems ready, sir. The station's shields are at full power. Mike opened a channel to the Corvan ships. This is Captain Thompson of the UES Defender. This station is under human protection. You will not board it or threaten its inhabitants. Human captain, came the reply. You have no authority here. This is council space. What council? Mike asked. Last I heard, your government quit paying council dues 3 weeks ago. You are operating as an independent military force in disputed territory. That makes you pirates. There was a long pause. Finally, the Corvan commander replied, We will remember this interference, human. Good, Mike said. Remember it when you need our help in a few months. The Corvan ships departed without taking action. This scene was playing out across the galaxy. Human military forces were becoming the only reliable peacekeepers in many regions. Species that had once resented human power were now grateful for human protection. General Kevin Adams commanded the Human Expeditionary Force from his headquarters on Mars. His troops were spread across 50 different star systems, providing security for aid operations and protecting refugee convoys. It was the largest military deployment in human history. "Sir," reported Colonel Diana Foster, his operations chief, "we have received requests for military assistance from 8 more species this week. The plasma beings want us to escort their diplomatic mission to negotiate with the energy entities. The mechanical collective is asking for help defending their core worlds from hive attacks." Kevin studied the strategic map. Red zones marked areas of active conflict. Yellow zones showed regions of political instability. Green zones indicated areas under human protection or alliance. The green zones were expanding every day. "What is our current military capacity?" he asked. "We are operating at maximum deployment," Diana replied. "But morale is high and casualties are minimal. Most of our operations are peacekeeping rather than actual combat." "That is because we are not trying to conquer anyone," Kevin observed. "We are just providing stability, something the Council never understood how to do." The truth was becoming clear to everyone. The Galactic Council had never been a source of peace and stability. It had been a source of tension and conflict. By forcing natural enemies to cooperate and preventing natural allies from working together, the Council had created an artificial system that was always on the verge of collapse. Now that the artificial system was gone, the galaxy was reorganizing itself along natural lines. Species with compatible interests were forming alliances. Species with irreconcilable differences were simply avoiding each other. And humanity, with its combination of military strength, economic power, and diplomatic skill, was emerging as the natural leader of this new order. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station and watched ships from 40 different species dock at the massive spaceport. 6 months ago, these species had been forbidden from working together by Council regulations. Now they were partners in the largest alliance in galactic history. "Sir," said his aide, Lieutenant Lisa Carter, "the representatives from the crystalline entities have arrived. They are requesting an immediate meeting about the trade agreement." Jake nodded. The crystalline entities produced some of the most advanced computer processors in the galaxy, but they had always been restricted in how much they could sell to humans. Now, with those restrictions gone, both species were benefiting enormously. "Schedule them for this afternoon," Jake replied. "And make sure the mechanical collective representatives are included. Their manufacturing systems work perfectly with crystalline processors." This was the new way of doing business. Instead of the Council dictating who could trade with whom, species were free to find their natural partners. Trade flourished, innovation accelerated, and living standards improved across the galaxy. President Helen Brooks signed the final charter documents that would establish the Human Alliance as the successor to the Galactic Council. Unlike the old Council, membership was voluntary, and no species was forced to follow rules they had not agreed to. "Madam President," said Secretary of State John Martinez, "we now have formal membership applications from 41 species. That represents approximately 60% of known galactic civilization." "What about the remaining Council loyalists?" President Brooks asked. "Down to 9 species," John replied. "And 3 of those have sent unofficial diplomatic missions, asking about alliance membership. The Council still exists on paper, but it has no real authority left." The collapse had been faster and more complete than anyone had predicted. The Council's authority had been based entirely on the myth of unity. Once that myth was broken, there was nothing left to hold the system together. Captain Amy Lewis commanded the UES Mediator, one of the ships providing security for the new Alliance headquarters. Her patrol route took her past the former Council, capital of Nexus Prime. What she saw there was both sad and instructive. "Captain," reported her sensor officer, "we are detecting only 3 ships in orbit around Nexus Prime. Last year there were usually over 100. Amy looked at the readings. The once bustling capital of galactic civilization was now almost deserted. Most of the embassies had closed. The bureaucrats had fled. Even the support staff had found jobs elsewhere. "Any signs of life on the planet?" she asked. "Minimal," came the reply. "Maybe a few thousand inhabitants still living in the old government district. Everything else appears to be abandoned." It was a fitting end for a system that had prioritized control over cooperation. The Council had spent so much time trying to maintain their own power that they had forgotten to serve the people they claimed to represent. Dr. Paul Anderson worked at the Economic Research Institute on Luna. His job was to measure the effects of the new alliance system compared to the old Council regulations. The results were striking. Trade volume has increased by 300% since the alliance was formed, he reported to a gathering of government officials. Technological innovation is up by 400%. Immigration requests have increased by over 1,000%. "What about conflicts?" asked Defense Secretary Bill Cooper. "Down by 70%, Paul replied. "It turns out that when species are free to choose their own partners, they are much less likely to fight. The Council's forced cooperation actually created more tension than it prevented." The numbers told the story clearly. The galaxy was more peaceful, more prosperous, and more innovative under human leadership than it had ever been under the Council system. Commander Rachel Green led a diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim, where several species were still undecided about joining the Alliance. Her ship, the UES Harmony, carried no weapons. Instead, it was loaded with medical supplies, educational materials, and technological assistance. "Commander," said her diplomatic advisor, "the gaseous collective has agreed to meet with us. They are interested in our atmospheric processing technology." Rachel smiled. The gaseous collective lived in the atmospheres of gas giant planets. They had been struggling with pollution problems for decades, but the Council had never prioritized environmental technology. Humans had developed advanced atmospheric processors for their own terraforming projects, and they were happy to share the technology. "Set up the meeting," Rachel ordered, "and make sure they understand that we are not asking them to choose between us and anyone else. We just want to help." This was the key difference between the Alliance and the old Council. The Alliance did not demand exclusive loyalty. Species could maintain whatever relationships they wanted with non-Alliance governments. The only requirement was that they not attack Alliance members. General Marcus Taylor commanded the Alliance Defense Force from his headquarters on Proxima Station. Unlike the old Council military, which had been primarily concerned with enforcing political decisions, the Alliance Defense Force focused on protection and peacekeeping. "Sir," reported his intelligence chief, "we have successfully mediated the dispute between the Hive worlds and the crystal entities. Both sides have agreed to withdraw their fleets and resume trade negotiations." Marcus nodded with satisfaction. "Any signs of the old Council military trying to reassert control?" "None, sir. Most of the Council's military units have been absorbed into Alliance forces or have simply disbanded. The few remaining Loyalist fleets are focused on defending their own homeworlds." The transformation of the military had been one of the most dramatic changes. Under the Council system, military force had been used primarily to threaten and coerce. Under the Alliance system, it was used to protect and mediate. The result was a dramatic reduction in conflict throughout the galaxy. Admiral Susan Blake reviewed the final reports from her intelligence networks. The old Council was officially dissolved. The last 3 member species had voted to join the Alliance rather than continue supporting a government that no longer existed. "Admiral," reported Captain Lisa Henderson, "we have received formal surrender documents from the Nexus Prime garrison. They are requesting transportation to Alliance territory and asylum for their families." Susan felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. These were good people who had been serving a bad system. They deserved a chance to start over in the new galaxy that was emerging. "Grant their request," she ordered. "And make sure they know that there will be no punishment for their past service. We are building a future, not settling old scores." The new galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems, still injustices. But it was better than what had come before. Species were free to choose their own destinies. Trade and cooperation flourished. Innovation thrived. And humanity, rather than being the aggressive expansionist power that the Council had feared, had become the benevolent leader that the galaxy needed. Jake Morrison returned to the same observation deck where he had watched the ships arriving earlier. Now, as the day cycle ended, he could see the lights of the new Alliance headquarters spreading across the asteroid where they had been built. It was a symbol of hope for the future. "Sir," said Lisa Carter, joining him at the window, "the Aquatic Collective has just signed the final trade agreement. That completes our economic integration with all 41 member species." Jake smiled. "And it only took 6 months to build something better than what the Council spent 3 centuries creating. What do you think made the difference?" Lisa asked. Jake thought for a moment. "The Council was based on fear. Fear of war, fear of chaos, fear of change. We built something based on hope. Hope for prosperity, hope for cooperation, hope for a better future." Outside the window, ships from dozens of different species worked together to build new facilities, new trade routes, and new friendships. The galaxy had rejected the Council's vision of forced unity and embraced humanity's vision of voluntary cooperation. The result was a civilization more prosperous, more peaceful, and more free than anything that had come before. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it.